Welcome back to Up the Villa. We are here for Unai Emery's press conference reaction, Villa v Wolves. I've got a mate on this one. Normally we do these on my own, but Justin's here. How are you?
I thought I'd keep you company, mate, for once on a Friday.
Yeah, you know, it gets lonely sometimes doing these on my own. So Justin is here then. So Emery's been speaking ahead of the game. The game's approaching. Justin, getting a bit nervy, or are you feeling all right?
I'm feeling very happy. Yes, I'm confident in the lads. As I said on the one we did the other day, I'm very confident. I think we're in a very good place. We're a very good team. I think against teams like Wolves, no disrespect to them, because anybody's capable of beating anyone in the day. Just look at Forest going to Liverpool last week. Anything can happen if you're not on it. But if we turn up, we win this game 99 times out of 100 now, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think the big thing for me is I want us to be 100% committed, determined, with the correct endeavour, the correct mentality, the correct fight, and then everything else will just go through, won't it? Quality will come out.
That's not me being big-headed either. I'm not being just. When we first started this podcast, it became a bit of a standing joke. I just predict we're going to win every game. That's just my mentality. I want us to win every game, I think. But the difference between when we started it, when we first got promoted to the Premier League, and me saying, I think we can win, that was more hope. That was more me thinking, if we play to our very, very, very best and the opposition are off it, and it's our day, we can beat whoever, we can beat one of the top sides. That has totally shifted now to we are now the other side of that coin, which is we have now got to have a very off day and the opposition has got to have a bit of a worldie now to beat us. That's how good we have now become, and that's my thought process. So I'm not being big-headed. That's a genuine appreciation of where we are now as a team.
Mm-hmm. Right, so we'll kick it off then with the big positive. I think whenever you see a player that comes off with ice on his ankle, you're thinking, oh, God, what's going on here? Is he out? Is he not? Watkins is 100% available. Emery's been speaking and saying that he is available 100% to play. He's sometimes stopping because we have to protect the players, but now he's totally 100%. So, Justin, how does that make you feel that Watkins is 100%? Because someone that went under the radar last week, has he got 16 goals to go now to get Gabby's record?
Far off. He's not far off. Come on, Ollie. Hopefully he'll get 16 on Saturday.
So 16 to go for Gabby's record. That's
end of the season.
Doable this year, surely.
Yeah.
He's going to get another 16 goals. If he gets a little cheeky hat-trick in there somewhere, which he normally gets a hat-trick a season, he'll get there. So how are you feeling that Watkins is fit, fighting, raring, ready to go now?
Yeah, it's good news, isn't it? We've got to keep these players in tip-top condition, and it was a little bit of a concern the other night when he came off and the camera panned round and he got that ice pack on his calf, I think it was. But I think, they're so well looked after these days, even if there's just a tiny, tiny little pull or, if they just say, oh, I'm feeling this, it's just prudent, isn't it, to err on the side of caution and make sure they give them the best, they can get, which they do, don't they? Our medical teams are fantastic. So I think, it's common knowledge he's been nursing a little bit of a knock probably since the summer, which is why he pulled out the last England squad. But he looks in pretty good nick. He seems to be more or less up to speed now. He's had his little mini pre-season in the first 5 or 6 games of this season. So I think he's just going to get better and better now. And having the competition of Duran as well, pushing him, I think he's going to be absolutely flying in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Healthy competition as well, which is what every squad needs and wants. Right, so he's been speaking about rotation. And I think this is a good talking point. He's said quite a lot on this, to be fair. So about rotating the team for Wolves, but also rotating in general and talking about last season. So he said, it depends, but we had last year a very good experience playing in the Conference League. Of course, the Champions League is at the beginning more difficult, but the experience we had last year playing a lot of matches is good for this year, and it depends on how the players are after each game. The idea is to be consistent with the idea we have with some plans, with some players, because they joined us this summer and are getting better, but understanding our tactical idea. Tomorrow, I am playing those who will be better tactically, physically, as well as mentally to play. So take something away from that there. He's speaking about players that were signed in the summer and are getting better, but understanding his tactical idea. So those players that I think he must be talking about there are Barkley and especially Maatsen. You know, I was on a Bayern Munich podcast yesterday, and he was talking about like Maatsen, and you know, he was asking how he's doing, and I was like, well, he's currently not actually like starting games for us, and he, you know, he's a big money signing, but I think we will obviously get there with Maatsen, and he'll probably get to a point eventually where, you know, we will be starting games. But what do you read into that then, Justin? Do you sense a bit of rotation from Emery, or do you think he's just going to assess it where we're at? Because the last two games, he's pretty much kept the same lineup, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I think everybody gets rested next week. We'll go with more or less you know, I'm not going to say reserve team, but the players that haven't played will get a lot of minutes in the cup game next week. And he'll want to win this game because it sets us up brilliantly then for the next few games, doesn't it? It's a definite winnable game. But I think there's players on the bench that are more than capable, as we've seen, to come on and be as good as what we've got in that 11. So who'd be a manager, you know, because you've got to constantly balance your squad now, not a team. And it's interesting now that when they do drop their team news, it says your squad for today's game. It doesn't say your team for today's game anymore. And I think that's how they look at it now. Everybody's a very important cog in this wheel. And all of these players that are currently sitting on the bench, kicking the heels, probably a bit frustrated that they haven't had more starts, not game time, but starts. They're going to have their time. Their time will come. There'll be a time when Maatsen will have to play probably 5, 6, 7 games, maybe if Dean gets suspension or gets a little knock. So it's critically important that he makes sure they all know this, and they do. They you know, when they would have been signed, they would know exactly how they fit into this team and the squad. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he does tweak it a little bit, because it will be 3 games in 7 days. So I think if they'll probably be led more by the medical side of it, because they're keeping a real check on their numbers in games. And I think if 1 or 2 numbers are slightly down, then they might pull them to one side and say, how you feeling? You know, feel ready to go. And it might be that instead of playing 60, they might play 45. So, okay, do a half each. You know, so it is a balancing act. But what we don't want is picking up injuries. You know, we've had enough of them over the last few years. So err on the side of caution early in the season. Loads of games, loads of competitions to play in. I'm happy whatever he goes with, to be honest.
Yeah, and you know, you look back to last season, and there's always that narrative with people in football that sort of a big challenge like Europe and Premier League is like really like difficult, and you have got to rotate and how you adapt to it. But if you go back to last season when we was thick involved in the Conference League, that's when we were like at our best. Back-to-back games, no time to recover, to rest, to think. It was just straight into the next one. And, you know, there's a couple of players that I'm looking at in this Villa team thinking, you need to play because you are in purple patch of form. You're performing to a really high level. Keep going. Tielemans, Ramsey, like, you know, Ramsey, if he backs that performance up from Tuesday night with another big one against Wolves, he's now banging form, playing some of the best football he's played for Villa. You've got Rodgers in there as well, Watkins scoring goals. So there's a lot of players in that team that are really delivering to a high level. So it's going to be exciting to see what he does and sort of where those levels are really. So he spoke about the derby as well. He's put, yes, I've been involved in many derbies in this country and in other countries, and tomorrow is another. Gary O'Neill's been speaking today. He's mentioned that Totti and Ain't Nouri are both doubts for this game as well. So, how we touched on it in the preview, or predicted lineup, but he's coming under a lot of stick, Gary O'Neill, from their fans. Like I've been watching their fan channels and podcasts, and we've got the opposition preview that's out later on today. You've got a double upload day today, so aren't you guys at home lucky? That's coming out at 5:00, and they're all a little bit like, oh, like he's getting into like a bit of like treacherous conditions here, and it can go one of two ways. They've got Liverpool after us. How's he going to approach this?
I think Wolves fans are going to be very careful that they don't bite the hand that's sort of feeding at the moment, because he's done a fantastic job there over the last 12 months, and he's having to once again do it in difficult circumstances, losing his sort of best players, trying to balance the books and keep a competitive side in the Premier League. So I think the reason they're getting jittery is because of the results and where they are on the table. 1 point from 4 games. Fans do. They start thinking, is it the manager? Is it the manager? Everton fans are starting to question Dyche. I've seen people question Postecoglou because they haven't had a flying start at Spurs. So it's a natural thing for sort of fans to have a bit of a moan, but I think he's doing all right. And I think, again, a bit like Dyche when he came with Everton, it's a balancing act, isn't it? You want to be on the front foot, you want to be competitive, but you don't want to leave the back door open. They're coming to a good side now, a top Premier League side. So it's in it being a derby as well. Obviously, he's not going to want to be embarrassed. And there's always a potential that we can embarrass teams on our day. We put 4 or 5 past a couple of 3 teams last season. So it's difficult. I'd rather be on the Villa bench than the Wolves bench, put it like that.
I'd rather be a Villa fan than a Wolves fan, so I think we'll add that one to it as well. So on Wolves, we put our experience is that every game is difficult, and you have to respect every team. And if you want to win, you have to focus on the match. They played very well here. They compete very well, and it's the same coach. Tomorrow is going to be no different. So we know that they are going to come and sort of make life difficult for us. They'll try and make a game of it, but I think, like we've touched on at the start, I think it's all about us, and if we do what we can do, then we should win this game. On Duran, he's put as a striker. He's clearly helping us score goals and making a good impact, but the idea is to play in the starting 11. I don't know, tomorrow or Tuesday or next weekend, but he's close and ready to play and add more minutes to play with us. He might play with Watkins, play together, play alone. We have a very good player, and his commitment now is getting better. His commitment now is getting better. I think after a difficult summer, he's 100% focused here. I think everything now is going like we want. So if that doesn't say to me, you've sorted your shit out and you're ready to commit and play for us, then I don't know what does say that, but that is pretty telling with what he said at the bottom there. So Emery's like, do you know, I kind of feel like I think what Emery's kind of doing with him is he's sort of psychologically being quite clever with him. I think what he's done is he said, right, you can come back in the group and in the team. He's dangling a little carrot and he's saying, you've got to get better. You've got to improve. And I think he's got to earn the start. And I think, honestly, once he earns that start, that will be sort of like Emery being like arm round him and like, you're back. Now, that's the way I'm kind of reading into that a little bit. How are you reading into it?
Yeah, I think, it's a shame it all got played out in public, didn't it? But I think that was down to, you got to put it down to Duran last season. He wasn't backwards and coming forwards with all his off-field antics last year, and it did leak out, and a lot of stuff that he shouldn't have done really came out, and I think that also then seeped its way into the training ground, to his teammates, and it became almost to a point where it became a bit untenable, and the rumours that the other players were like getting a bit annoyed with him, and yeah, I think it was McGinn's press conference after the Liverpool game. But it does seem that they're all adults. They're all, we can fall out with anybody, family members, friends, and stuff. And I think as long as you've grown up and you all sit down and you thrash it out and you come to an agreement that okay, that's happened now. We'll put that away. We'll draw a line under it. How do we move forward? And I think that's what happened in the summer. By all accounts, he would have been sold had a certain fee been reached. I'm bloody glad now that nobody reached that fee. But that was a very, pretty well reported that had anybody got up to the number that Villa wanted, he would have been let go. So when that didn't happen, then it was a matter of bringing him back in. He was an asset to the club. Financially, he's an asset, obviously, on the books, especially in the modern age where money is very important. So I think they had to talk and okay, how do we get things going again? You're obviously a very talented footballer. You want to succeed. You want to play in the very top. We are in the Champions League. That gives you the best chance to showcase yourself on the highest stage in football. And I think he's done really well. I had a bit of a go last year. I had a bit of a go in the summer about his attitude. But I've also got to be fair to the lad and say he does seem to me, everything's coming out now. All the negative stuff that came out last year, it's all positive now. And that is so good to see. He's a young lad. Everybody makes mistakes when you're young. It's how you learn from those mistakes and going forward. And he seems to be toeing the line. His performances on the pitch are phenomenal, so that helps massively. His teammates are all singing his praises now. And the manager, once again, are we surprised, has managed it absolutely superbly well. But that comes from his experience playing and managing the top players in the world. So long may it continue.
Yeah, and he wears his bib at half time now as well, so toeing the line. Right, so that's everything for Emery. Rodgers has done a bit of talking, and he's put, I'm struggling to hit a barn door at this rate. I'm just missing a goal or an assist. My confidence is high. I'm going onto the pitch with a real swagger. I'm loving my football. I'm playing the best I've ever played. As long as we're winning, I'm happy. A goal would be nice. I can feel one coming. He's scoring against Wolves, Justin. Rodgers is bagging against Wolves. It's happening.
Well, I called the first goal scorer in the Champions League, so I'm going to call it again. I agree with you. I think he's due a goal. Yeah. And it's good to hear him talk like that because I think everybody that's watched him this season, that's the only thing that's really missing from his game is he hasn't got enough goals for his performances and his positions he's got himself in. And these teammates have found him in some wonderful positions. He's just not quite been able to add that finishing touch. But, the old adage is, strikers, if you get in the positions, the goals will come. Yeah. And that's what will happen. All that's happened is a little bit of a fine-tuning. He's a top player, isn't he? He's a wonderful player to watch. So I've no doubt the goals and assists will start to flow.
Yeah. Really, really good. I was telling the Bayern Munich fans all about him yesterday as well, so I made sure they all go and check what he's like because they hadn't heard of him. They didn't know who he was, so I've let them know who Morgan Rodgers is. We did a combined 11. Yeah, we did a combined 11, and somehow we managed to agree to put 6 Villa players in it. So I don't know what happened to him, but we had 6 Villa players in a combined 11 with Bayern Munich and Aston Villa. The 6 players that we got in were Martinez, Pau, Konsa. We had Onana, we had Bailey, and we had Rodgers. So those were the Villa players. So, right, there's a bit of a stacked one. We've got some other news as well. Philogene is out. He's injured. And Bailey and Cash have been pictured back in training as well. So, yeah, I think Cash may get a cheeky start. I think he might. But, yeah, so that's everything from us for now. We've got the opposition preview at 5 o'clock as well. So enjoy all the content. The next thing you'll probably see me do after that will be the fan cam. So if anyone wants to come over and do a fan cam, then everybody is welcome. So up the Villa.
Up the Villa.